So why don't we start off the show by explaining a little bit about exactly what the CARES Act is and how it is creating these opportunities.
Cool. The CARES Act was set up to keep the economy running, and
Yep.
a lot of us know it as the stuff that was done for the PPP loans
Yep.
that businesses got, as well as unemployment benefits were extended. But a big chunk of the money actually went to education. Why? Because for schools to open back up, they have to deal in a post-COVID world. So schools aren't even sure if they're going to have classes next year. I'm on the local board of ed in my hometown, and we're struggling with how will school look? If we're only allowed to have half the kids there, how are we going to do it? So obviously one of the components that comes to mind is distance learning and technology, and fortunately the CARES Act is allowing money to be spent in those areas.
Absolutely. I'm sure a lot of our dealers have had experience in dealing with the PPP loans to help supplement your business if necessary. I'm sure some of you have also had employees that are benefiting from the additional unemployment insurance or from other incentives that are being used to stimulate the economy. Well, one of the aspects of this CARE Act is what they call the Education Stabilization Fund.
Yep.
And that's the portion that we're focusing on
Exactly.
today. This fund is over $30 billion. Every article we found in researching for the show has that number just a little bit different, as you would expect the government to do,
Yep.
but that number is there.
So this next slide is the deep dive explanation of it. So it stands for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Basically what we wanted to stress is the part you see in the yellow. These funds are really for after-school summer learning, student nutrition, mental health supports, and of course, hiring additional staff as needed
Right.
to do whatever school's going to look like. But a section is available for technology and distance learning. Now, I want to make sure you guys understand that this is $30 billion total. It's not all for technology, and
Right.
a lot of the technology spend is going to go to rural and poorer districts that don't have adequate bandwidth, switching, stuff like that, even Wi-Fi in their buildings. But for a lot of schools that already have that infrastructure, they're looking to take the next step, which is to put in distance learning into some or all of their classrooms.
Absolutely, and I think there are two aspects of it. Obviously, there's a portion of these CARES funds that can be used towards the technology budget, but also by having these funds to support your mandatory budgets like nutrition and school services allows other discretionary funds to go into the tech budget.
Of course.
And that's really where that balloon starts to
Yep.
blow up rather quickly.
Yeah, so I think we should preface by saying we grabbed a lot of graphics to get this going from different
Absolutely.
places, publicly available graphics or graphics, infographics we saw on LinkedIn and stuff like that. None of these tie out. The numbers aren't exactly the same depending on when people did it and where it is, but we want you to get the feel for the scope of this. So this is the whole United States. Every state is getting money. Some states are getting hundreds of millions. Others are getting 25, 50, 80 million, but every state is getting their share of money. And a lot of this money is being spent with local dealers and local IT technology companies.
Absolutely. On this next slide, we're actually showing what some of these top 10 states are. And the interesting thing about this is these are also some of the top 10 regions where our dealers are doing the most business. So when you see that number starting to go hand in hand, it really identifies some of those great opportunities out there.
I like this little pie because it shows that some of this is going to colleges, some of it's going to K through 12, and then other is what they're calling emergency relief grants. And those grants can be for technology also.
Yep. Yeah, those grants would be going directly to the district.
Correct.
To build out the entire district. It might go to a local building or even an administrative building.
Correct.
Because remember, a lot of these school boards are also looking for ways to continue communications to the community in broadcasting their school board meetings and making technology investments there as well.
And even major universities that had a lot of technology in them, they tended to have them in discrete areas where, the money was. Maybe they had a theater program, maybe they had a communications program or a tech program, maybe it was their sports. But now they're trying to put in multiple classrooms throughout their college university system. So there are some really big opportunities out here, folks.
Absolutely, and I think in the universities traditionally, where an adjunct professor might have broadcasted his class online to get more students available to listen to that, now you're going to see almost every class offered by the school having some sort of technology component added to it.
And every state's different. Like California is still saying they're not going to have kids in the classrooms when school starts.
Yes.
New York, Ohio are coming up with plans where they're allowing to do something. I don't know what some other states, I think Michigan just announced that they're going to be back to school. So it's real interesting. And I think this next slide that we got was from Ohio, the state of Ohio. So
that's why I went to it. You mentioned Ohio.
We're not trying to single out Ohio, but this is a great breakout of where it goes to. So I'll let you take it over from here, Jim.
Well, what I thought was interesting about pulling the slide from Ohio was that they were listed as number 7 of those top 10. So they're in the bottom half of the top 10 areas. It's not a traditional technology hotbed, but Ohio State University being one of the top colleges in the country, as you can speak to personally. So you can see there are opportunities in these areas all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I liked about this was they were kind of showing their breakout of what they thought they were going to get. So can you just bring this up full screen? Because I just want to show how of the $14 billion, Ohio thinks they're going to get $388 million. And if we could go to the next one, you can see this is what they think they're going to get for elementary. They think they're going to get $105 million, and $489 million for emergency relief, and then $100 million for education. So this is just a lot of money coming to these states, and they're having to turn it around very quickly. So this is, don't be asleep at the wheel. If you have any kind of relationship with any kind of schools in your local area, be they public, private, parochial, small colleges, community colleges, big colleges, reach out to the people you know and find out what they're doing with their CARES money and what they have available for technology, and let them know you offer technology that they're looking for, that they desperately want and need.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have some tips on how to go out hunting and how to go after these opportunities.
Cool. So one of the ones I wanted to bring out, we talked about it earlier on the show, is this money's kind of been sitting around dormant because schools and colleges have been closed. Now, the admins are still working, but to make a plan to put a PTZ camera into, let's say, 100 lecture centers, that's not just something you do on your own. That takes a lot of people working together, coordinating and stuff like that. So the budgets for public schools just passed because the school budget cycle tends to be, from July to June. So that means there's end-of-year money that's being earmarked for this, because a lot of schools, because they were closed, had savings in other areas.
Absolutely.
There's new budgets because they saw this was coming, and there's CARES money. So there's 3 different pockets that are putting technology into public schools. And then we also felt, and this was something I had some great discussions with some of our vendors and some of our larger integration partners. We have partners who are system integrators, who are multi-state, very big companies. I was talking to some of the people at the top of those companies, and they were talking about how they expect to see 2 waves of installations. Obviously, everyone's in a rush to do whatever they can this summer for the fall, but they also said that a lot of the colleges and universities are going to change the way they go to school. They're going to run straight through from the opening of school till Thanksgiving, and then they expect to send the kids home for the entire month of December and January. And one of the things they're looking to do is to use that time when there's no students around to do the installs and technology upgrades that they weren't able to get in over the summer.
And those are the 2 cycles that we're talking about here. I would add one more cycle to that, which is the one that already passed. There was an immediate need, an instant reaction to do whatever we can to keep the classrooms going. The cycle we're going into now with this summer selling period is going to be, how can we do this the right way, and how can we make it better when the kids come back?
Proactive rather than reactive.
It's that 3rd cycle that you're talking about with this change of schedule once they get the kids home. If we can start getting that messaging out there today, we can really carry this funding and carry this sales opportunity well into next year.
Yeah, I think you're going to see this running well into 2021. This is not a short-term cycle because, if you bring up the next slide, and actually we jumped the gun a little bit, but there's shortages. And we'll talk about those shortages a little bit as we get into products. But even there are school districts wanting to get 100 cameras, and we're struggling to get our dealer who's servicing that 20 or 5 or 10.
Yes.
And these shortages are going to run through the summer and into the fall.
Yeah, and I know you were expecting we were going to go into the product setup. Before we do that, I do want to remind our dealers that a lot of our vendors do have EDU programs available. They do have special deal reg opportunities to help you get your margin on large sale opportunities. We're actually going to talk about some of these products that have these multi-unit opportunities, and then other products that would be the more traditional EDU market that people know and love, like the PTZ cameras and live production gear.
And some of these deals that are coming through are not 5s and 10s. They're 20s, 50s, and hundreds of units. So if you're lucky enough to be in on one of these bids, there's a couple of words of advice I've got to give you. Number 1 is sharpen your pencil and be prepared to work on slightly different margins, because almost all these educational things have to go out to multiple bids. Most states require 3. So if you think you're going to work on full margin, I hope you can, But the only way you're going to get that is if you put some kind of secret sauce or installation training, other stuff in there to protect it. What I wanted to stress is what Broadfield's going to do is if you bring one of these bigger deals to us, we're going to do everything to work with the vendors to make sure you close it. We're going to try to get you the best pricing, best availability. If it's something that's got to be installed by a certain date, we're going to let the vendor know we need this stuff by that time frame.
Absolutely.
We're really going to advocate for you, our dealers, to make sure you not only get the bid, but can execute and close it, because opportunities like this, it's a once in a not a once in a time, a once in a decade opportunity in this business cycle where things happen to fall in place for our dealers, and we want to make sure they can all take advantage of this, so that no one gets left behind.
And that's really the resource of your Broadfield sales team, is all of our salespeople have the ability to work with you to get the vendor program that's available. If there's a deal reg program, if there's a large order opportunity, anything we can do to help put margin back into your pocket to be competitive on the quote. Even if it's something as simple as you need to provide 3 different quotes to the school or university, we can actually help furnish those for you so that your quote is the one on the top of the stack to help win that deal.
Nice.
You know, so anything we could do, you know how to reach Rich and the whole Broadfield sales team, 800-634-5178. I'll end my commercial announcement and we'll go back into the products.
Yeah.